Hey everyone, it's Derek with OPTP. Today, as part of our Feel Good Holiday Gift Series, we've got 4 excellent quadricep stretches for you. Now, these stretches are going to progress in intensity from least intense to most intense. A lot of us have tight quadriceps as a result of sitting for prolonged periods of time. As we sit in that shortened posture, those muscles, those hip flexors, become shortened. Now, not only can that cause tension and tightness in the hips, but that can also increase tension and tightness in the back, into the shoulders, neck, and chest as well, as our kind of entire posture gets rounded forward. So today we're going to focus on opening things up, again with 4 quadricep stretches, progressing from least intense to most intense. Let's get started. Okay, so all 4 of the stretches that we do today are going to be done on the ground, so you're either going to need access to the floor with hopefully a mat or a table. You might also like to have a pillow to rest your head on. Now, my tool of choice today is going to be the Stretch EZ. Now, this tool is most commonly used for things like stretching and mobilizing the plantar fascia, getting into the foot-ankle complex, the calves, and the hamstrings. But by simply flipping around the orientation of the Stretch EZ, it becomes a phenomenal tool for stretching the quadriceps as well. So I'm going to get it into position here. Okay, our first stretch is going to be a sideline quadricep stretch. So I'm going to turn onto the side here, bring my head in hand. Now, if this isn't comfortable, you can also kind of lie down with your arm extended or grab your pillow and lay down on that. Now from here, I'm going to position my top hand through one of the loops of the Stretch EZ and then bring it up and around so that it's over my shoulder. And now we're ready to begin. So from this position, my bottom leg is slightly flexed, and I'm going to first be mindful of whether or not I'm arching my back. So if you are moving into excessive extension, make sure you kind of create a neutral spine there by pushing those hips forward. Now, once you're there, you can start to apply some pressure onto the Stretch EZ to bring that top knee into more flexion, and this is where you're really going to start to feel some length take place across the quadriceps. Now, as you're doing this, also be mindful of where your top knee is pointing. You don't want to have it be pointing forward. You want to either have it be pointing down or even slightly behind your body. That's also really going to keep some tension on those muscles across the front of the hips and help you create length. So as you're breathing here, you can also increase the tension on the strap. Either way, make sure that you do this for at least 30 seconds, and then we'll move on to variation number 2. Okay, so our second variation is going to be a prone lying quadricep stretch. So I'm going to flip over onto the stomach, and I'm going to bring my hand through one of the top loops of the Stretch EZ, and then I'm going to bring the strap over the shoulder. Now from here, I'm going to let the elbows travel out to the sides. I can let my head drop down onto the arm, or I can keep it up slightly. I'm going to decide to keep it up here so I can address the camera. And from here, I'm also going to take the other hand and position it through the loop as well. Now, first thing we want to be mindful of here is whether or not we are arching the low back again. So if we are moving into extension, we're going to want to try to neutralize things out by driving the hips into the earth, creating that neutral pelvis. And right when you make that little adjustment, you should start to feel some tension across the front of the hip there. Now, once we're here, we can begin to apply pressure to the strap and really move that knee into deeper flexion. And this is where we're really going to feel the length start to take place across the front of the hip. Breathe through it, nice and easy. And we're going to hold it here for 30 seconds plus before we move on to variation number 3. Okay, so this third quadricep stretching variation is going to represent a clear progression in intensity from where we were just at. We're going to start kneeling here. Now, make sure that you have some level of padding underneath that bottom knee. Here I've got a mat. You can use a pillow or some other form of cushion. The front leg is going to be positioned at about 90 degrees. You can even scoot that foot a little bit out further if you'd like. I'm going to take the Stretch EZ, bring the strap up and around the shoulder again as I kind of displace my center of mass forward to start. And as I bring that strap up and over the shoulder here, I can begin the stretch by first correcting any arching in the low back by just neutralizing things, so engaging in a little bit of posterior pelvic tilt. Now from there, a lot of us will probably be kind of set and feel a large amount of tension across the front of the hip, which is great. We would hold it here. If you want a little bit more intensity, you can apply pressure to the strap, bringing that knee into more flexion. You can also displace your center of mass forward even more, creating even more length across the hip flexor there. Either way, whatever you decide, 30 plus seconds, and then we'll move on to variation number 4. Okay, so our fourth and final quadricep stretching variation is going to be probably the most intense for most people. Now, what we're gonna do here is get into kind of a modified pigeon pose where on one side we're stretching the front of the hips. On the other side, we're stretching the back of the hips. So to begin, I'm gonna take whatever leg does not have the stretch EZ and bring it out front and rotate to the point where I can keep my hips nice and square to the floor. Now, if you can't keep your hips square, if you feel yourself excessively rotating, regardless of whether you're up high or kind of sitting down lower, you're going to want to stick with those first 3 variations before you progress here. If you can keep your hips square, start up high and take your hand through the loop of the stretch EZ, bring it up and around the shoulder. From this position here, we are gonna simultaneously kind of drive that strap forward and down to bring that knee into more flexion while sitting deeper into that down hip. And this combination here is where you're really gonna start to feel length across the front of the hip, on the side with the stretch EZ, in the back of the hip that's in that pigeon position. This is a wonderful stretch, a lot we can do to play around with the intensity here, so give it some time. Hold for at least 30 seconds, and then make sure you do the other side. All right, everyone, thanks so much for watching. Hope these stretches get those hip flexors feeling good. If you want to learn more about the stretch EZ, which isn't only great for doing hip flexor stretches and such like we did today, but also it's a phenomenal tool for really mobilizing and stretching the plantar fascia, calves, hamstrings, and even more, just go to optp.com. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.